Well, happy holidays. Welcome into another edition of Talkin Ducks. We are getting set for the Fiesta Bowl, Oregon versus Liberty. We'll ask you, how excited are you really for this game? And then National Signing Day. Ducks get the number 6 ranked class in the nation. You pair that with the transfers of Dylan Gabriel and Dante Moore. How loaded are the Ducks for the future as they make their move to the Big Ten? And then we'll finally give you our predictions for this matchup against Liberty in the Fiesta Bowl. But let's go ahead and bring in the guys here. We've got Aaron Fentress and Anthony Newman, and no Joey Harrington. So guys, maybe that answers the question as far as what's your excitement level for the Fiesta Bowl? I mean, here it is. It's a New Year's game at the end of this week coming up here. It's Oregon versus Liberty, and it feels like they're just, not to put words in your mouth here, Aaron, but there just hasn't been quite the same buzz for this bowl game as we've had in previous New Year's 6 games that the Ducks have played in.
Man, yesterday during Christmas, I'm having fun with the fam. I get a text from our producer saying, hey, remember Talkin Ducks tomorrow at 1 p.m.? I'm like, oh yeah, there's a game coming up. No, that's sort of been the feel, just with the people I know and just the chatter on Twitter, is that there isn't a ton of excitement for this matchup. But as a person with a psychology minor, I feel that I'm qualified to try and figure out a way to get people jacked up. And also, I'm a master at trying to find storylines to get me jacked up because I'm covering a 7-21 Blazers team right now. So here's the thing. Number one, Bo Nix, one of the greatest QBs in the history of the program. He's going to play. And since he's going to play, you should get excited just to watch him play. Hope he sends his career off on a good note. You know, he leaves a winner. You can cheer him on as he goes off into the sunset. There's that. Also, you know, as time goes by, people are going to forget who you played in the Fiesta Bowl. It'd be nice to just have another Fiesta Bowl championship trophy in the trophy case, right? So there's that, because you definitely don't want to lose it. So there's the motivation for you. You get to watch your Ducks play, you get to send Bo off the right way, and it's still the Fiesta Bowl regardless of who you're playing. There you go. Get jacked up.
Anthony, Aaron said something really interesting there.
I did?
Well, yeah, believe it or not, my friend. It's not something you want to lose. This game, Anthony, feels like this is more of a situation where, all right, we have one more game. We can't lose this one. We can't be a team that loses to Liberty like we saw USC lose to Tulane last year. But then if you beat Liberty, you get another trophy. In all honesty, and I'm not saying this to be a hater, I know everybody on the team wants to play in this game, and I've played in bowl games where we were 7-6 going in, Anthony. Does one more Fiesta Bowl trophy against the Liberty move the needle that much for Oregon as a program? Or what do you see this game coming down to?
It does. But, you know, first of all, I want to say this. I'm going to date myself, but, you know, I didn't play in a bowl game. So I'm happy to watch. I'm happy to watch these guys playing in the Fiesta Bowl.
Maybe they'll let you play.
Another bowl. What's that?
Maybe they'll let you play with all the opt-outs.
Really? I mean, why not? I mean, hey, you're going down to, you know, Arizona, some nice weather, playing on grass in the Fiesta Bowl, New Year's 6 Bowl. Come on. And it's a football game. You're competitive. Now, that's what Dan Lanning's saying to these guys. Hey, it's a football game. And we don't want to be the team that loses to this football team, and now everybody's talking about you. Oh, overrated. You're not very good. You lost to Liberty. Are you kidding me? You don't want to be that team. So it's two-sided story here. It's a no-win situation for Oregon because they're supposed to win. They should blow them out, and if they don't blow them out, they're not very good. You know, and if Liberty wins, it's like, oh wow, you know, now the roof's going to come off. But, you know, Dan Lanning and his coaching staff, these guys are pumped. It's another game. You have to finish the season. You got to go out on top. If you're a senior, this is your last football game you may ever play in. Or, you know, if you're going off to the next level, hey, you know, end your college career on a high note. And it's the Fiesta Bowl. It's still a bowl game that's one of the big bowl games. So, yes, these guys are going to be pumped. They're going to be ready. But it is a no-win situation. It really is.
I do want to add one thing. Like, a lot of the teams that fans would have rather see Oregon play have all sorts of stars not playing. So It's kind of been diluted anyway, right? When you look at it in the past, you would play against teams at full strength. Now, not even Oregon's at full strength. So that dilutes it regardless. So at least you know you're playing a team that's coming in thinking like this is their Super Bowl. They get a chance. I mean, every kid over there is like, I get a chance to play against Oregon and maybe beat Oregon. So they're going to be coming. So there's that side of it too.
I would say this. I think it's human nature when you look at what was sitting there for Oregon before this game to feel like this game might be a letdown. It's one thing if Oregon was picked to finish 6th in the Pac-12 coming into the season and they have this remarkable year where they only lose 2 games and one of them's in the conference championship game and there's a New Year's 6 bowl game they get to play in versus the reality was they're a couple plays away from being in the college football playoff. And so that's why I feel like this might feel like a step down. But I agree with you guys. There's a lot to be here for Oregon. You get to put the brand on national TV once again. That always helps. You never know which kids are watching that want to go to school here. Number 2, I think momentum into next year. We've seen this before, Aaron. A team closes out the season strong. They're in the forefront of people's minds when they come out with that top 25 next year. Where you're at in that top 25 plays a little bit of a hand as far as how difficult your path is to get to that college football playoff next year. I think if you're Oregon, just ending the year on a dominant note and the opportunity to maybe move up a spot or 2 in those final rankings based upon what happens in some of these other bowl games, there is still a good amount to be played here for, despite the relatively lack of excitement that it feels like coming into this game, Aaron.
100%. I mean, Lanning is in his 2nd season, okay? He hasn't won a conference title yet, but he came close, and that's fine. That's not a knock on him at all. But he won his first bowl game, and now win your second in a bigger bowl, regardless of the opponent. And you're just stacking trophies. You're just stacking momentum for the program as you move forward. So yeah, there's I've said this for a decade. Oregon is in no position to be looking down upon, turning its nose up at a Fiesta Bowl. I don't care who the opponent is. You don't have a national championship yet. You're just not that program yet. I know you want to be, but you're not. So I think there's a lot on the line for this program, and I think a lot of positive things in play. And again, you're starting out as head coach, as Dan Lanning is, and if you can add a Fiesta Bowl trophy to the trophy case, no one's going to remember who you played. It's not going to matter. It's just going to be a Holiday Bowl trophy and a Fiesta Bowl trophy, and then maybe someday a national championship trophy. We'll see.
Real quick, on the opt-outs, Troy Franklin, Jackson Powers-Johnson, Kyrie Jackson, and Popo will not be in this game. We'll get to whether or not Oregon has still too much firepower for Liberty later on, but I think, Anthony, the other thing that plays into this as far as the, quote, lack of excitement potentially or lack of buildup is no disrespect to Liberty. They've had a sensational year, but what if this was Oregon, Georgia? What if this was Oregon, Ohio State? It feels like it would be a completely different type of approach to this bowl game, but the fact that it is a Liberty, a group of 5, I imagine that has an impact here.
Well, yeah, but, I think we look at it from the outside, Jordan. It's like, it's not the buildup. It's not the hype. But Coach Lanning and his staff, he's not saying that to the kids. Because I say this again, they don't want to be the team that loses to Liberty. You don't want to be that team. I mean, it's an embarrassment. You need to go out there and take care of business. And with that being said, I guarantee you the practices and the meetings, they're on point. They're taking care of business. We hope, and I think Dan Lanning wants to go blow these guys out of the water, and they should. But that has to happen. And I think also Dan Lanning is going to tell the kids, they're thinking that you're going to blow this team out of the water. So you have to do that. So this team they're getting ready for a big game within themselves. It's not about the opponent. It's about themselves. So for us, the hype, yeah, Liberty, yeah, it's not Georgia. I understand that.
But hey, there's 2 examples.
Anthony, I want to know if you second this here real quick. Go ahead, Aaron.
Okay, there's 2 examples of when Oregon went in playing, what for them was a disappointing bowl matchup against BYU in Vegas, which you were on that team.
Thanks.
Yeah, bring that up.
Thanks for bringing that up.
I think y'all were like a 30-point favorite and lost by 30. And then
no, we were not a 30-point favorite.
I'm kidding, but you were favored. And then more recently, you had the lost to Boise State in the Vegas Bowl. I think Oregon was a 14-point favorite in that game. And so, you
also had the loss to Iowa State in the Fiesta Bowl too.
Yeah, but that team, that team was 4-2. Yeah, okay, we'll add that. I don't even know if the Ducks were favored in that game. Anyway, you'll add that as well. But the bottom line is you don't want those losses on your resume, right? Because looking back, like those are bad losses, regardless of what the record was that year for those teams. It just didn't look good. So, yeah, you take care of business against Liberty. Because if you go in there let's put it this way. if the fans and the coaches go in there with the mentality of the media and if the players and the coaches go in with the same mentality as the media and the fans, they gonna get whooped, right? Because Liberty's coming, like I said.
I'll wrap it up with this here.
There's a lot to play for those kids. Go out there and get it done.
I wouldn't be worried about the motivation for Oregon. I think it's easy on the outside, media, fans, from our perspective, to think that, how motivated is this team going to be? There's several factors. Number one, you've got players that are going to all of a sudden move up the depth chart because of some of these opt-outs that will get their first start, that will get significant playing time, to put that film out there for the coaches so they can fight for a starting spot next year. You've got players trying to work on their NFL draft status.
Correct.
You want to put together one more good game. That could be the difference of $50,000 to $100,000 or more in a signing bonus based upon where you get drafted. And don't forget, the coaches, they get bonuses for winning bowl games. So you bet that they will get these guys motivated if you can get a little bit more coin with a victory here. So Oregon will be plenty motivated, regardless of what people think on the outside. I think in the end of the day, you got Bo Nix playing, you got a hungry Liberty team coming in. Should be a lot of fun. All right, stick around when we come back. Oregon going bonkers in the transfer portal. Not one, but two elite quarterbacks, Dillon Gabriel, and of course, you've got Dante Moore from UCLA. We'll talk more about how Oregon all of a sudden just stacked the quarterback room when we come back on Talkin Ducks. Welcome back to Talkin Ducks. Time now for our legendary moment, brought to you by Abby's Legendary Pizza. And the big question coming into next season, what would Oregon do at quarterback with Bo Nix graduating and Ty Thompson waiting there? Well, they didn't waste any time or leave us guessing for too long. They pick up Oklahoma's Dillon Gabriel. So at the start of college free agency, the transfer portal, Oregon goes ahead and grabs a quarterback. But wait, Aaron, they weren't done.
They weren't?
Oh, no. Dante Moore from UCLA all of a sudden says peace out to Pasadena, and he joins Oregon. And Aaron, in this day and age of instant gratification and just scrolling and swiping to the next thing, what does it say about Oregon and Dante Moore that he essentially agrees to be a backup for a year? Oregon gets the 1-year rental with Gabriel, but boy, look at what you got waiting in the garage after that. Talk to me about the quarterback position for Oregon for the future and what this double signing of quarterbacks means for the Ducks.
It's fascinating. The whole story is fascinating. So when Moore declared that he was in the portal, I kind of wondered, for me personally, I'd be like, forget Moore, man. He backed out of, he left me at the altar, right? I'm going to take him back. But you can't really be that petty in the real world. And who am I to say what the relationship was when Dante made that decision, right? Landon could have been like, hey, good for you. If that's what you want, we'll see what happens. I think I joked on this show, heck, they can get him in the transfer portal later anyway. So you don't want to be too petty in a situation like that, especially if you love the talent. And that's just the world we live in right now with college football. Kids are going to go for wherever they want, for whatever reason, whether it's money, whether it's a chance to play right away or whatever is going on in their 18-year-old head. And sometimes you just have to let them make their decision and then sort of play the field after that. Now, here's the thing. I want to link this to Thompson. So Duck fans were beside themselves at the idea that Ty Thompson wasn't ready to play over Anthony Brown a couple years ago, right? And I reported on this show numerous times that several sources were saying that he just wasn't ready. Well, clearly, Lanning didn't think he was ready because he went out and got a transfer and then got another transfer in Gabriel. But what we also learned is that Dante Moore wasn't ready to play as a freshman because he wasn't good. 11 touchdowns, 9 picks, 53% completion percentage, not good. So maybe he was humbled and realized, maybe I wasn't ready. Maybe I do need some coaching. And I would prefer to be at Oregon for whatever reason. I don't know what happened there. But he comes to Oregon willing to sit behind Gabriel, who will be a 6th-year starter and has had massive success, learn under him, learn under Stein, et cetera, and then build himself up to be potentially the starter in 25. I say potentially because if he doesn't show marked improvement, they're going to go out and get another transfer, right? They're just going to, because that's just what Oregon's going to be able to do every single offseason. So it's all fascinating. It's all amazing. But one more thing, what does this say to Austin Novosad? What does it say to him? Because not only did they go out and get a transfer for 2024, they got a kid who was far more highly touted than Austin was to come in and have at least 2, if not 3, if they redshirt him, years remaining. He could be the backup and still redshirt. Where you're in a position, if you're Austin, when are you going to play? So now you're looking at a situation where you could be locked in as the backup for your entire career. One more point I must make. This, to me, sort of flips everything on its ear, because if I'm a high-end recruit and I can't pick a place where I'm going to start right away at a Power 5 major college, and I'm going somewhere where I'm going to have to grind knowing that they can go out and buy a quarterback with $1 million, $2 million anytime, why don't I go anywhere in the country? It doesn't matter. I'll go to Portland State. I'll go to the Big Sky. I'll go, Group of 5, where I know I can start, where I know I can put up stats, because what's going to happen next? Someone is going to come get me with a bag of money, as opposed to going like Ty Thompson did and sitting at Oregon, redshirting behind Brown, and then sitting behind Bo. You spent 3 years doing next to nothing. That's time wasted you could have been playing, and time wasted you could have been boosting your value. So I think this whole scenario here says that not only have things changed from the transfer standpoint in terms of going out and get stars, but it should change from the high school kids mindset that it doesn't matter where you go at first, just as long as you can go somewhere we can put up some stats so then you can get paid.
Yeah, definitely
segment
changes
over.
a lot here, but yeah. And the immediate future, obviously, is Dylan Gabriel. And Anthony, I don't know how much you got a chance to see him play at Oklahoma, but impressive numbers. They get a win over Texas this season. And the fit with Will Stein, people ask, how are you going to replace a Bo Nix? It's hard to really beat that efficiency. But at the end of the day, you're getting an extremely talented quarterback that has experience once again. And that seems to be the most important factor, is you've got an experienced playmaker at center next year, or under center, I should say, that's been in those big games, that isn't going to have that deer in the headlights moment as Oregon goes to the Big Ten.
Yeah, guys, I'm just so confused on how all this works now. I really am. I just
well, Anthony, basically, you have a bag of money.
Well, it's
and you
it's
say,
this.
hey, we need a quarterback.
Get
Who
my
wants
wallet
the bag of money based upon how good they are?
I got no money to give
money.
a quarterback, so I'm broke. So there's nothing in this wallet. I can't help you on my team, but it's just it's so like. Here's the question that I have, and hey, I'm happy that Dylan's here. Hey, great, experienced quarterback, 1 year, get it done. But like, okay, why you're doing so well there? Why did you leave? Like all the stuff that maybe we don't know what's going on behind closed doors. I get that, and then this game, like you said, Aaron, it's free agency. It's college, but it's not. So. I'm just confused. And then Dante Moore, he's coming to be a backup when he can go start anywhere in the country for another football team.
But can he? Because he wasn't very good. He wasn't very good.
Yes.
Well,
if they give him some money.
No. But how many programs wanted him to come start? That's the problem. He went on the field and played as a true freshman when he probably wasn't ready to, and did not look good. So now you could go out there and play well, right, and put up stats, and now everyone wants you. Or you go out there and not play well, and everyone's like, oh, well, maybe he wasn't a 5-star can't miss because he's missing. You see what I'm saying? So,
but I think that's also based on the type of school, Aaron. It's like he wants to go to an Oregon. He wants to go to Alabama. He wants to go to, a Texas. But there's other schools that maybe want him. He didn't want to do that. He'd rather sit behind a guy for a year, which is great. I don't mind at all. That's how you grow. Matter of fact, I think that's how it started, where you get, you signed as a freshman and you stay there for about 3 or 4 years and you grow. Not you bounce around to different schools and do that. So again, that's the system that we're playing with. It is what it is. I'm excited to see, there's one quarterback position on that plays, one guy that plays on the field, and Dylan's gonna lead the way. But yeah, you got a guy behind you. And then how does that affect the recruiting of quarterbacks and development of quarterbacks moving forward? I guess it doesn't matter, because you can go out and grab one. You can go grab instant success. We saw it with the Heisman, the 3 Heisman quarterbacks that were there, all transfers. So it's kind of crazy. It really is. It's crazy. I'm lost by it, but I understand it because it's all about money.
I would never put big
resources.
I would never put big resources into recruiting a high school quarterback. I wouldn't. No. I'd be like, hey, do you want to come to work? We like you. No? Okay, never mind. That's all I would do. I wouldn't hound them.
Though, Aaron,
because I could go out and get anyone I want if you're Oregon with a bag of money anytime.
It also depends, though, Aaron. You've got to have some consistent success as a program.
Oh, yes.
You can have all the money in the world, but if you are 2-10, 3-9, as we're seeing with Texas A&M right now. Players leaving that were given a lot of money. You've got to have some success as a team. And so
True.
Oregon obviously is in the pole position because they are a top 10 program, a national brand. They do have money, but they've got to keep the victories and the wins coming to be an attractive place for players to come, because I think it's fair to say, yes, money matters, but guys want to go and also win at the same time. They don't want to go get their head beat in somewhere and go 2-10, 3-9, and that's not going to help them as far as trying to get to the NFL eventually as well. So I think there is a balance between, you've got to have your program play well. You can't just rely on buying a quarterback year after year, but
that's what makes your that's what makes your program go. If they didn't go get Bo Nix, where would they be? Like, seriously, how many games has Lanning win the last 2 years without Nix?
No, I agree. I'm not saying it's flawed. I think Oregon's in a position to now perpetuate this year after year, but not every program can just do this tomorrow.
I was talking about Oregon. I'm saying if I'm Oregon, I don't waste time.
This is Talkin Ducks.
Or resources on recruiting high school quarterbacks. I mean, I'll spend some, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it.
No, I agree, and it also speaks volumes. I talk to a lot of coaches, whether it's the games we call for football and for basketball. They say the value in being a player's number 2 school has never been higher than ever before. And you always make sure you end that conversation when they decide to go to school A over you on a positive note, and you leave that door open, because the rate at which we're seeing players transfer, if you can be the backup school, that grass is always going to look greener if they struggle in that first year. So it puts a huge impetus on recruiting at the end of the day, which, to your point, Aaron, do you start to pursue some of those kids that are 5 stars? And if you don't get them, you at least try to get into that number 2 or 3 position and try and snag them a year or 2 later.
I mean, yeah. I mean, that's nice, but they weren't in any position with Bo or Gabriel, and they went and got them. Like, and we don't know how more is going to be. I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that I don't know if it matters. You just wait. And then you look at the landscape and you say, oh, there's a couple good quarterbacks over there. We can pay them more money. We have proof that they're good at this level. We're not guessing coming out of high school. We have proof. Yeah. We have stats. We know what they can do. And I'm going to give you that money. I'm going to pluck you away. And if you're Oregon, you're going to be able to go out and do that to about 100 different programs where you can steal their quarterback. And so, anyway. Good for them.
It's wild. Either way, it is the new normal in college football. And I think especially at that quarterback position where you can't just plug in one player that's going to make a huge difference. I still think the offensive lines, like we've seen in Colorado, do have to be built up with recruits. But either way, in this day and age, for Oregon to basically be set at the quarterback position for the next 4 seasons says a lot. All right, stick around. When we come back, you pair the quarterback transfers with a top 10 recruiting class. Seems like Oregon's in a great position heading into the Big Ten. We'll let you know about National Signing Day and how the Ducks fared when we come back on Talkin Ducks.
This is the time of year we celebrate family, traditions, and great food. At Abby's, our legendary pizzas are so giant that they feed up to 6 happy family members. When you need a break from cooking, think Abby's, our place or your place. Our family is here for your family.
Yeah, it's just an everyday approach, and I think we've got a staff that's been doing this for a while and recognizes it's not about the short term. It's about being able to do something every single day, focus on the long-term goals. And, there's these guys that we're going to get are guys that we think can really enhance what we've, built and already established here. So having guys that are open to being at Oregon and realize what Oregon can be, and then having a staff that's willing to work to go get those guys. Everyone has seen, what Oregon is and what, it can be here. I think the move to the Big Ten gave everyone a clear vision about where we're headed as well. So it's a premier conference in college football. Us getting to be a part of that and build and enhance that conference is something that was really important, I think, to the guys that we brought in this class and our coaching staff as well.
All right, that was Dan Lanning talking about National Signing Day, where the Ducks, Aaron, picked up a number 6 nationally ranked recruiting class. And I know you have been banging the drum on this for over a decade, the value in those recruiting class rankings and how it parlays into winning national championships. So now here's Oregon in probably one of their most successful off seasons ever. When you look at the quarterback that they transfer in, as well as the recruiting class, what does this say about the Ducks moving forward, especially this transition to the Big Ten?
Well, clearly Lanning has kept the momentum going and recruiting that Mario had rolling. The difference we want to see, though, is more hits rather than misses. Mario had a lot of misses. There's a lot of kids in the transfer portal the last couple of years, because they really didn't necessarily fit and have the talent level that maybe Lanning was looking for. That allowed him to sign a lot of guys, though, because he had a lot of available scholarships, right? So there's a huge difference between the guy having 4 stars right by his name and the guy actually producing at that level. So you hope that the coaches have a good eye for actual talent and then can develop that talent rather than just signing stars, which some coaches across the country do, because recruiting services are so powerful now that when you have a highly rated recruiting class, you can get paid just off that class. But I think Lanning has a pretty darn good eye for talent. I think we've seen that in Georgia. I think we've seen that with just his transfer portal kids, which have just been absolute money. Like, his mastery of free agency has been impeccable thus far, right? So I trust.
Best GM in college.
Right. So I trust, with a lot, especially with all the defensive front 7 guys in this class, as someone who recruited to Georgia and helped recruit kids who built some of the greatest defenses football's ever seen at the college level, that he knows what he's doing. So if you're a Duck fan, you got to be excited about this. You just got to hope it all obviously plays out the way you want it to. But, the transfer portal is a different world. The money with the NIL creates a different world. But don't hate the player, hate the game. We all have reservations about the game, but I ain't going to hate the player, because Dan Lanning is the player. That dude is working it on every level imaginable. Last year he was smoking a cigar afterwards. I think this time he was cooking some steaks or whatever. So he's enjoying the process of going out there and getting his dudes. And if he's truly getting his dudes and they pan out, watch out. I do, like, Big Ten, wherever they were going to be, really, with the expansion to 12 teams in the playoffs, there's really no reason why Oregon can't be in it at least 50% of the time.
2 of every 3 years.
At least, right?
Well,
especially with these types of classes.
Yeah, it's interesting. And Anthony, you look at what Oregon has done in recruiting this year, you notice a trend this season compared to last season. And what about the results we saw underneath year 2 with Lanning as far as the guys that he brought in? You really made an astute observation here.
Well, yeah. I mean, last year, and again, let's back up. When Dan Lanning came to Oregon, the number one thing he wanted to do is build up the line, the offensive line and the defensive line. You win football games in the trenches, and that's big time. And he is so right. Okay, but you have to understand that you got to go out and get those kids, and you just can't get a couple of them. So last year, when you looked at the high school recruiting part of it, they got a lot of offensive linemen, and those young offensive linemen are playing. Okay, those guys were in the mix. They're rotating. They're getting starts. They're getting plays. They're getting experience. And that's when you start to build that offensive line. You start having guys play together for a long time. This year, they went and got a bunch of defensive linemen. Jericho Johnson, Elijah Rushing, guys are inside, outside guys, linebackers, Braden Platt, the guy who looks like Tarzan or Hulk. He's so big. He's 18, 19 years old. It's unreal. But you got to get the guys up front who are going to change the game. And it's easier to make certain calls that you want to make because you got guys up front, just like we talked about this year with the defense. The reason why the secondary was so successful because you had 4 down linemen getting to the quarterback without blitzing linebackers. You having linemen win one-on-one battles. That is huge. That changes for a defensive coordinator to, hey, I can do different things with my back end guys. I can keep linebackers dropping back in coverage now. So, but you got to go recruit those guys. Now, understand this. Football coaches, it's not about just coaching football. You have to be able to create relationships with kids and parents. So now you got to become a recruiter. Oregon has a bunch of guys that can recruit. They can go out and talk to guys and go, hey, we have a program for you. We can do some things for you. We can take care of you. Mom, dad will take care of your son for the next 2, 3 to 4 years. Well, usually not now because it's transfer portal. Everybody's changing it within a year or 2. But anyway, we'll take care of them for about a year or 2. But that is huge, to get the top player. So a couple years ago, 3, 4 years ago, Kayvon Thibodeau was number 1 defensive lineman. We got 1 of them. Okay, this year we got about 3 or 4 defensive linemen that are like Kayvon Thibodeau that can play. Big difference.
Yeah, to me, Aaron, it feels like to keep recruits, right? That is the new challenge that every school's facing because of the transfer portal. It feels like, number 1, your culture has got to be strong and consistent with when you recruit a kid. And every kid's experience is going to obviously be different, but how well does the pitch you sell in the home translate to the actual experience that first year? And then number 2, that opportunity's got to be there, whether it's the first year or the second year. kids are going to be antsy to play. And I think there's an understanding if you're a freshman, I'm going to buy my time, I'm going to get in the weight room, I'm going to redshirt. But it feels like you've got almost this supply chain management, if you're Oregon, that is now kicked to another level because of the transfer portal. And to your point, you said Lanning has managed that expertly. This feels like this is going to be a huge challenge for teams moving forward, just managing when you bring in kids and the available spots that you possibly have.
You know, so the one thing that's clear about, you know, what's going on here is I think they brought in 40 plus kids last year, counting transfer kids. And then this year they got 30 something plus or whatever. You know, there's only so many scholarships to go around. There's only so many starting jobs to go around, right? So what we're going to see more than ever is that, yeah, people are in love with this class and they're going, oh my God, look at these guys we got. I predict half will be gone within 2 years. Yeah. And that's not necessarily, I mean, it's bad in terms of how we always processed and understood football, because guys build their way up and then boom, Kenyon Barner, boom, you know, Dennis Dixon, boom, Joey Harrington, right? But now you're going to have, what Lanning's doing is he's stacking the roster with enough talent to where they're going to battle it out, and then the cream's going to rise to the top. And I don't think those guys are going to bail, because if those guys are beating out, like if you have 8 4-star receivers and 2 emerge as like studs, they're not going anywhere, because you're going to be able to pay them to keep them from going anywhere. The other 6 might leave, but you're cool with that, right? Because 1, you can't pay them, and 2, you got too many, because you know on the back end, you're going to come in with another wave of freshmen, right, to replace them and start the whole process over again. So, you know, it's a situation where you're gonna breed a lot of intense competition for those starting jobs. And then I think Oregon's going to be in a position where they're going to be able to retain those kids because they're going to have the money to do so.
All right, last bit of news. Oregon State, the rivalry that shall not be named or cannot be named right now, will continue for 2 more years. Thoughts on that, Anthony? Because obviously the 2 schools are going to be in different conferences. Oregon State is still trying to figure out what they're going to do with that war chest of money they now have with Washington State. But your thoughts on this rivalry continuing?
So let me see. We're playing Oregon State in September, and it's hot, about 85 degrees. You know, at the beginning of the season. Okay, does that seem okay? Well, that's what we get. So we got to be happy with it. I mean, at least they're playing. That's the bottom line. So people complain about, well, it's not the last game of the year, and the game shouldn't matter. It does matter. You know, it's a football game. The kids want to win. You know, it's Oregon State. It's a team that you want to beat badly. So it doesn't matter if you play them at the beginning of the season or at the end of the season. At least you get to play them, you know, and keep that rivalry going for a long time.
Aaron, I'm surprised Oregon State agreed to this, because it feels like if you're the Beavers, and let's say you are now moving to that group of 5, you got to go undefeated or maybe have 1 loss. The last thing you want to do is put one more team on your schedule that you might have a pretty good chance of losing to in Oregon, because there's going to be changes in talent here. Your thoughts on the Beavers wanting to continue this rivalry?
Props to them, because they're going to be overmatched. I mean, that's my only concern with this rivalry now, is that I think they won 2 of the last 4, right? Oregon State did. So there was usually a puncher's chance that they could pull off a win. But now, you know, we just talked about all the reasons why this is going to be a lopsided situation. The talent disparity is going to be grotesque. And so I just wonder how long Oregon State is going to want to continue doing this if they're just getting their heads pounded in every year, unless there's obviously a financial incentive involved, and maybe you do it for that. But props to them for continuing it. It's not the same, guy. I hear what you're saying, Anthony, but I can't. It's really difficult for me to truly express how disgusted I am with the entire situation. Not that my opinion matters, but I think a lot of people agree. It's just the whole thing's just the Pac-12 is gone.
Minutes to air all your grievances.
The Pac-12 is gone, pretty much. It's ridiculous. So anyway, I know. I'm glad it's happening for a while. As long as Oregon State wants to do it, great. But I would not blame them if in a couple of years they're like, yeah, we're done with this.
All right. Stick around when we come back. We'll give you our thoughts on the matchup against Liberty as we march along on Talkin Ducks.
What's the great thing about bowl season is you get an opportunity to go out there and play one more game, and more importantly, send our seniors off the right way. You know, a lot of these guys like Brandon and Connor have put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this game, and you want the opportunity for them to get to celebrate that one last time together on the football field.
I mean, last time I was here for the Fiesta Bowl, it was really kind of a weird one because of during COVID year. So, like Coach Leonard said, both like games are great for connections. Like these times are the times you're never gonna forget. Like when you get married, your homies come to their marriage. Like you're gonna talk about these bowl games, and that's the reason I play. Cause I love these moments. I love the game, and I just can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just why you work hard all year. Is to put yourself in a position to play in games like this. And just like Coach Lanning said, like connection is a big part of our team and our program, and this is an amazing opportunity. We all get to spend this whole week together, in this amazing community with all these amazing people around us, and just a lot of great memories to be made. And just like Brandon said as well, these are stories that we'll be telling our kids one day. So just really looking forward to the week ahead.
Yeah, I think the great thing about bowl games, we've talked to our team throughout bowl prep, is there's going to be somebody that shows up in this game that we haven't really seen yet this season. That's consistent with bowl games throughout the year. Last year we had some guys that showed up for us big in the Holiday Bowl, and I know there's going to be some guys that haven't shown up that will show up in this Fiesta Bowl. So it'll be fun to see that happen. Beyond that, just having the opportunity for more practices to continue to develop and grow as players, that's something that we want to take advantage of.
Well, the Ducks have officially landed in Arizona, getting set for this Fiesta Bowl. And listen, we talked about at the top here, Aaron, as far as maybe on the outside there's not as much hype, but this is still a football game. This is still an opportunity for Oregon to build another brick on this house that Lanning is starting to establish here. And you look at this game, the fact that Bo Nix is still playing, Bucky Irving's still playing. You've got a lot of talent taking the field for Oregon, and a chance for the Ducks to make yet another national statement on a national stage against a Liberty team that's going to be having a lot to play for. It still feels like there's a lot of things that you can be excited for. What are you looking forward to in this game?
Don't
answer too quickly.
No, I think, like I said earlier, just to see Bo play one more time, see Bucky play one more time. And there's a lot of short-term legends in this group, right? That you get to see play again. As far as finding that sort of oomph, we've talked about before. It's the Fiesta Bowl, and it doesn't matter who you're playing. Go out there and win a major bowl game. Oregon, it's not like Oregon has 25 major bowl wins in its career, right? They got a nice supply of trophies in the trophy case, but this is a big one, so go out there and take care of it.
And Anthony, any young players that you're excited to see? Because we've heard before the coaching staff say the young players are going to get an opportunity. They're going to get a chance. Are there any particular players you're looking forward to actually seeing in some live game action here?
Well, there's a lot of young players on both sides of the ball that we're going to see. But it's not only young players, guys. It's guys who are starters but didn't get a lot of touches. If Troy Franklin's in the game, you're throwing the ball to Troy Franklin. He's getting the ball. He's getting 9 catches a game. And then Gary Bryant Jr., maybe he's got 1 or 2 catches. Tez Johnson has maybe 3 catches. Well, now these guys can shine because these guys are still playing. From the defensive standpoint, the same thing. I mean, you're lucky that you get your defensive line coming back to play. Sometimes this helps you if you're going to the league. Hey, let me get another game in so they can see more film. Brandon Dorlus, he's getting more games, he's getting more film. Jordan Birch is still playing. So that's important. To get something on film so the pros can see you. But we talked about this during the preseason. Oregon has a lot of depth. They got a lot of players. I mean, it was 26 receivers listed. There was like 18 or 19 DBs listed. How do you play everybody? Well, now these guys who didn't play as much, or the guys who are still stars, but they weren't the true star, now they get to shine in this bowl game. And that's what you're looking for.
It's interesting as well, too, because, Aaron, you're going to be having a backup center in this game. And that's going to change a lot for this offense, right? No Jackson Powers-Johnson. You're getting a look at the future of this offensive line and what it's going to look like. And I think when you look at some of these subtle position swaps or some of these opt-outs and trying to project what Oregon's going to look like next year, transfers or not, it can be telling. I mean, I think we saw this in the Alamo Bowl loss against TCU that, woof, there were some issues with Oregon's depth at some spots. Also, another Alamo Bowl where we got our first look at Troy Franklin, and you saw how bright his future was going to be. Let's start with this offensive line. Your thoughts on just seeing some backup step up here and what it means for Oregon's future moving forward?
Well, yeah, the line had another great season, and, Newman talked about them recruiting a lot of young, talented offensive linemen. And so, yeah, you're going to they're going to get a lot of reps during practice, first-team reps. and then they're going to get a chance to go out in a big game. And it's, not that they haven't played in games, but this is a big stage to make your big start in, and it does set the table. I mean, it absolutely does. And so at the end of the day, like there were some people during the whole bowl selection for even Oregon fans and some other fans, they should just opt out or whatever. No, you don't opt out. That's corny. You go out there and you want your young guys to practice. You want them to play. And so we're going to get a look at the O-line and other positions, like Newman said, and see what some of the young talent is like on this team. The only thing I'm worried about, right, for Oregon right now is when you lose a guy like Franklin, who is such a focal point of the passing game and keeps defenses so honest and can blow the top off the defense. If someone else does a step up in that role, that could change the dynamic of the offense a little bit, which could make things a little interesting, maybe. Other than that, I feel like they're going to be fine.
Plus a freshman starting at center for the Ducks as well, too. All right, Anthony, give us the scouting report on Liberty. You were saying this is a team that's going to love to run the ball and could be a challenge for this Oregon defense.
Well, yeah, Liberty will run the football, and they lead the nation in yards per game. They run over, 300 yards per game. They are running the football. They got a big running back. Not a big, he's a short, stocky running back. Last name is Cooley. This guy can run. So you got to gang tackle. And what we see in bowl games that, you haven't hit anybody in a long time. You got about 3 weeks before you play, and you go on vacation, you come back, and the tackling is poor, and you see that in bowl games. God, the tackling's not good. Well, in this game for Oregon, the tackling better be good, because if they're not going to run the ball with the running back, Salter, the quarterback, he's a running quarterback. He's going to run the football. And at the beginning of the year, that we saw that with Oregon, and it gave Oregon some problems until they fixed that. But I have to also think about Liberty. Who are they playing? Okay, I get that as well. But it's their bowl game. It's their Super Bowl for them. They're going to come out and they have nothing to lose. So Oregon, they're going to have to be ready to rock and roll and stop the running game of Liberty.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating for this Oregon defense because you play against these teams, Aaron, that love to run the ball, they control the clock, puts a lot of pressure on your offense to be efficient. As you said before, you're missing these pieces. So I think it's easy to look at this 17-point favorite for the Ducks and think, oh, they're going to stomp Liberty. But it's hard when you're facing a team that can run the ball and control the clock. And we saw Oregon, their last game against Washington, not do a very good job against stopping the run.
Exactly. And like Newman mentioned, you have a QB that can make plays with his feet, right? So, and he threw 30 touchdowns or so and only 6 picks. So he's efficient there as well. And one player at that position, as we talked about in this whole show, how important that position is, can change everything. If he's converting 3rd and 10s and 3rd and 5s and keeping the chains moving, all of a sudden, the game changes. The dynamic changes. So Oregon does have to come in and try and slow down that run, man. Slow it down and then get some pressure on the quarterback. If they do that, like in almost every game ever, then I think they stomp. If they don't, it's going to be a game. By a game, I mean, I still think they win by a couple of touchdowns, but I think it could be interesting going into the second half.
All right, stick around when we come back. We'll close up this edition of Talkin Ducks. We'll give you our predictions for the matchup against Liberty and ask the big question, are you rooting for Washington in the college football playoff? Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
This is the time of year we celebrate family, traditions, and great food. At Abby's, our legendary pizzas are so giant that they feed up to 6 happy family members. When you need a break from cooking, think Abby's, our place or your place. Our family is here for your family.
Welcome back to Talkin Ducks, final segment before Oregon kicks off against Liberty in the Fiesta Bowl. Oregon's 17-point favorites as it stands today. And let's go ahead and just get to our predictions here real quickly. Aaron, we've talked about it. Oregon, they're missing some key pieces, but even bigger keys will be on the field for them. When you look at Bo Nix, Bucky Irving, some huge pieces of the defense as well, too. How do you see this one shaking out against a Liberty team that is going to be giving unbelievable effort, no players opting out for them? This is their Super Bowl, a chance to kind of make the same wave that Tulane did last year with their victory over USC. How do you see this one going?
I think it's going to be interesting for at least a half, and then I think Oregon's talent level just overwhelms the situation and Liberty and pulls away at the end. So I'm going to go 40-20 Ducks, but it's going to be like, a 10-point game in the second half, and then Oregon will pull away.
All right, Anthony, how about yourself?
Yeah, Liberty's not going to stop Oregon's offense. With Bo Nix in the game, if Bo Nix wasn't playing, different story, meaning blowout. And I think this offense with the running backs and the offensive linemen, yes, they got a new center, but still, you got 4 other dudes that are dudes, and you still have a gang of receivers to throw the ball to, and that's Bo Nix throwing the football or running. But don't get it twisted now. Liberty, they have 21 interceptions, so they're ball hawks. They're going to go get the ball, but I think Oregon's just going to run the ball down their throat, give them a piece of their medicine. But Oregon has to stop the run. And if you're going to run the football with Liberty, it's hard to score points, trying to keep up with another team's offense. You got to throw the ball eventually. And so I think just Oregon's offense is going to be too dominant. So 21 points was the spread for me, and it's not going to be close.
Yeah, I got Oregon winning 42-17. I think Ducks will roll away with this thing, especially with Nix at quarterback. It's just hard to beat his efficiency, regardless of who he's throwing it to. But Aaron, the real question is, there's a Pac-12 school in its final year of existence in this conference in the college football playoff. Washington and Texas one game, and then Michigan, Alabama in the other. As a Duck fan, should you pull for the Huskies in the college football playoff at all?
Hell no. Husky fans on Twitter are always going back to that 1991 half championship in which they would have gotten smashed by Miami anyway, right? They always go back to that. If you're a Duck fan, the last thing you want is for that fan base to have a true national championship.
Uh-huh.
Oh my God. It would just be Oregon fans couldn't see anything until it won one.
And even then, they probably have to win 2 because Washington got theirs first.
True, but yeah, you might no way. There's no way a Duck fan could possibly pull for Washington.
You can't, because it's not like you're carrying the banner for the conference. It doesn't exist anymore after this. Forget it. How do you see these games shaking out real quick, though, Aaron? We got about a minute and a half left. Washington, Texas, Michigan, Alabama.
I got Bama, Texas in the national title game rematch.
That's a good call.
What about you, Anthony?
Yep, that's the same. People have Michigan, but I got Bama. I got Bama, and I have Texas for sure.
They're peaking. Their quarterback matured all season.
Yep.
They're peaking. That win over Georgia was no joke. I hate it because I just can't stand the fact.
I know. I hate it too. We need 12 teams.
But they're good.
We need 12 teams. We would have started the playoffs this week. Oregon would have been in there, I think, hosting like Missouri or something like that. It just would have been awesome. But either way, we've got to wait one more year. Oregon will get set to take on Liberty in this Fiesta Bowl. As we said before, regardless of the amount of hype that's been surrounding this game, this is a very important game for Oregon. Keep the momentum going, build a bridge into next season where you're going to be one of the top 3 teams in the Big Ten. And now, with this recruiting class and the quarterback transfers we talked about, Oregon has positioned themselves as a team that can make this 12-team playoff perennially. Because next week we'll talk more about how if you're top 3 in the Big Ten, you're going to have a chance to make it to the playoff every single year. But we'll see how the action takes place on the field in Arizona this upcoming weekend. From all of us here, thanks again for joining us. As always, we can't wait to break this one down in our final episode of the season next week. But enjoy the game, and we'll see you next time.